Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. And the number one rookie. Unless you talk to Jesse, you're the number two rookie.
I don't mind being number two. Jesse's a wonderful girl.
Jesse's my daughter. I taught her first. She was rookie number one, as they say. Good morning, Peter. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fine.
I hope
How you shaking there?
I hope you're in rare form today.
Rare form to... How about if I just listen?
Nah, you'll want to interject. So today's podcast title is dun, 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 Creative Real Estate Meets Probate Deals.
That's right. You said that last week. Yeah, we talked about that. I'm ready on that one.
That's why I wanted to make sure you were full of piss and vinegar.
Well, a few months ago we said to ourselves, maybe we should look into foreclosures, probate, check that out. So we got a foreclosure house to sell right now, and then a probate house wouldn't hurt either. Talk to me. Talk to me.
All right, here's the description. Until today, you might have considered probate a very lucrative business, but a strategy that needs capital or available cash only because probate courts most often just want all the money now so they can actually close the estate. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have some misconceptions or confusions about how probate works and just don't pursue it because of that. Realize most people often have an opinion about something they don't know anything about. Son of a gun.
Well, if you don't know anything, you got to have opinions then. Doesn't matter if they're right. You got to have something. Let's have opinions.
Okay. Which is why you should listen today and perhaps clear up the basics on how to find these deals the way nobody else does. Plus, how to finance them and then how to sell them, often without rehabbing them, so you can make money now, money monthly, and money later while not being a landlord or anything close to it. By listening to this unique 60-minute podcast, you will soon see probate properties are usually discounted type deals. But when probate meets creative, you will soon see buying at these discounts and selling over market value is a millionaire secret most won't put over airwaves like this one. Okay, So here we go. Here we go. So first of all, just a little bit of housekeeping. We record this podcast every Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know a lot of people are working and it's not a great time for everybody, but that's when we can do it, so that's when we do it. But you can join us if you would like to participate in the podcast by going to YouTube or Facebook and just type in Flipping Houses for Rookies and you'll find the live podcast there, and you'll be able to put in the comment section your questions. As long as it's pertaining to the podcast, we'll answer them. If it's something that is not part of the podcast, I prefer you send us a support ticket, which you can do at flippinghouses4rookies.com. At the top right-hand side is support, a link that says support. Also, there's a link in the description that is usually tools or very cheat sheets or checklists or different types of things that I feel are apropos or pertaining to the podcast we're talking about. Often I'll put stuff inside of the link and help you with some mostly tools and ideas or things to implement what we're talking about on the podcast. Our podcast is obviously 321 episodes in as of today. And we kind of morphed from just talking about creative real estate, because how do you talk about 7 deal structures for 321 podcasts. Somehow we've managed to do a lot of that, but it's also a lot of philosophy and theory and a lot of head stuff, mindset stuff. We do a lot of that stuff. So, so that's why the tools are there, so you can get outside of your head and actually get in the physical universe where the money is. Where's the money, Pete?
In the physical universe.
Yeah, they say money's made out of thin air, but the idea of attracting that money is what you make out of thin air.
Absolutely. I mean, I've looked at a number of things over the years. There's sell vitamins, pyramid systems, just all kinds of things, right? To make money, do this, that, and the other. And people complain how horrible they are. But you know what? There's always a few people that make a ton of money at any of those things. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
It's what between your ear balls,
Yep.
It's up to you.
All right, so let's get rocking. Probate. What exactly is it?
Probate.
On Bill's planet, here is how it is. Ever since people have been writing wills to hand down personal possessions, once deceased or not able to control them themselves, those wills have had to be proven genuine, usually by a judge.
That's right.
Without the probate process, greedy acquaintances or relatives could write up a fake will stating that all the dead person's wealth belongs to them.
Ooh, that never happened, right?
Ironically enough, so I have changed my life considerably recently because of some things I'm doing. And one of the things that I'm very, very proud of, which I never did before, is I'm usually 2 or 3 podcasts ahead. So I wrote this podcast several weeks ago, okay? And so I actually, it's a new thing for me because I have to go back and review them before I come on and remember where my head was at. Because usually when I write these, I'm in a certain spot. I sit in my office, I close the door, I turn on the music, and I just kind of wander on Bill's planet. And that's how we get here, okay? So when I was writing the podcast the week of, very often I would write them on Wednesday, we record them on Thursday. I was still in that mojo. But this was several weeks ago. And the reason why I'm telling you this is, ironically enough, my ex-father-in-law, who I was very close to, or close enough, we for 35 or almost 40 years did a lot of business together. And we weren't like every week up one another's butts, but we were very, whenever we needed one another, we were always there, right? And I would stop and visit. He was 85. Well, I read this sentence or this paragraph about how people getting greedy, and his son called me yesterday,
Okay.
and they're going to probate court, and the youngest boy, who is adopted, is doing exactly as I'm stating now. He's at a point, the mother has some form of dementia, okay? And he's actually calling her every day saying that dad wanted this and dad wanted that. So now the mother's repeating that to the other children. He's like, not brainwashing, because brainwashing needs severe pain and subdueness and all that kind of stuff. But
I don't know. That's pretty sneaky when you can do it like subtly like that.
Yeah.
I think that's worse.
But it's exactly what I'm telling you here. A long way for me to get it. It's when the greedy acquaintances or relatives could write a fake will and stating that all their possessions belong to him, and he's done this. Yeah. And he has it totally. And my brother-in-law is like, and I know the attorney because I've done transactions with my ex-father-in-law in the past, and he used this attorney a couple times. And I've made him a lot of money. He was a private lender for me for quite a while, right? And I made him a lot of money, and I point blank said to him, if you continue to use that attorney, we're done, right? So he didn't want to do that because it was easy money with me. But yeah, it was some years ago. He pulled some shady shit on me. So now the son is using this attorney. So that says where you're at. And, he's in the middle of a divorce, and they're faking documents, and they're writing will. They're doing all kinds of shady shit.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So the son that called you, was it the good one or the bad one?
It's his only son.
Yeah, the real son.
Yeah. The other is
not
adopted. The other is adopted.
Yeah.
So he's his oldest son and his only son.
Okay.
So probate really handles overseeing the validity and what the deceased person's intentions were or are, while balancing all of the debt and assets of the person that's gone. Okay? Now there's something you should probably hear from my mouth that is just my own personal realization that I had, I don't know, a year ago, we'll say.
Yeah.
Okay? So here's an arrogancy that I've noticed that, it's not so much my arrogance or my confidence. It's just that I've noticed it with many others that are in this position. So there's always one person that makes the wealth. Always one person that makes the wealth. They are the impetus. Now, they're not the ones that generate the wealth. They're the ones that create the ideas, and they hold mostly. Now, listen to me. I'm off topic here, but listen to me carefully, because this is you're going to take this as a simple comment, but I'm going to tell you this is true wealth. These people not only have the idea, but they hold the ethics in of the idea. They don't allow unethical things to happen. They don't allow things to swerve too far from their idea. Now, if you want to do some homework on this, I beg you to go, I think it's History Channel, and watch the series Food That Built America. And you will notice throughout 100 years, decade after decade, food chain after food chain, that the owners, separately but simultaneously, all had the idea, and they kept like the ethics of the idea in. In other words, if somebody came along and said you can't do it, they were kicked out. Right? If they were told that's impossible, they were kicked out. That's what I'm talking about with the ethics. So the ethics, ethics is a personal thing to you. Like you have morals, which is morals are like the group rules, like what the group agrees on, right? So like if there's a red light, you're supposed to stop. That's a moral, right? Your ethics are, do you stop or don't you? It's your personal decision on whether you're going to keep to the rules or not. Yep. Right? So are you going to stop at the red light, or are you going to blow through it? And that's your ethics level, right? So when I say that an owner or a person that makes wealth has their ideas, it's what they allow others to do around them based on their idea. Does it align with their idea or not align with their idea? Okay, now the reason why I'm going into this in detail is because wealth is an amazing thing, because it's usually just one guy with the ideas. Now, there's usually a team around him, a very core team, and they all agree. But the point is that one person, I say a guy, it could be a woman too, but that one person has the ideas, has the dream, has the fortitude, has the horsepower to make it happen. And the reason why is because there's going to be a lot of opposition. There's going to be a lot of counter intention, right? So that person does that. Now, here's what I'm talking about. Because that one person is so good at what they do, and they have the formulas in their head and the think of how they want things to be, when that person dies, that goes away. So I'm way off on a rant right now, so I hope I'm okay. I'm not too deep in the weeds, am I, Peter?
No, I think we see this every day on Game of Thrones, Last Kingdom, the Queen just died.
Okay.
Anytime there's that type of thing happen, I mean, watch what happens in England now that Queen Elizabeth is gone.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe we won't notice much, but there'll be more tabloid stories of what's going on probably.
I'm not worried about that. I'm getting thumbs up from Facebook, so I guess I'm good. So watch this. So what happens is, when you leave a job, or you leave an area, if you don't do some sort of like a write-up or some sort of a turnover to the next person, then naturally you just get stuck with that job until maybe years later the person that fulfilled your boots figures it out. So you're much better off just doing like, this is what I do when this happens, this is what I do when that happens. It could literally be a couple of hours, an afternoon, a couple of days, maybe a week. You like write it up. Now my exact reason for telling you this is that we just came out with a new software called Creative REI Reply, and that's all about creative real estate. It's a business in a box, and I actually have in there the write-ups for all the jobs. Otherwise, people will keep coming asking me how to do those jobs. So I actually wrote up, what is a texter? What is an opening caller? What is a closing caller? And what do they do? What is a deal meeting? And there's all these write-ups and then checklists on how to actually do these activities. Okay, so with that said, when a person that built the wealth passes away, the best thing that they could do is create a trust. And inside the trust is all of the instructions on what that person had done to build the wealth and how they keep it. So it's like a job turnover or a hat, like a fireman's hat. When you're wearing a fireman's hat, you're being a fireman, and when you're wearing a policeman's hat, you're being a policeman, and when you're wearing an engineer's hat, you're driving a train, And there's certain rules and certain things you do when you're wearing that hat or holding that job or doing that thing or in charge of that area, right? So when you write a trust, that means that the attorneys and the people that are going to run the trust have to follow your wishes, which will keep the wealth going. That's what they call generational wealth. And that's because the owner, the person that created the wealth, actually wrote up their successful actions and their not successful actions, and they kept their ethics presence beyond their living life.
Boy, that's quite a stretch.
Yeah.
No, that's real foresightedness, power, and make it legal. And it's not, they don't have a few pieces of paper laying around. It's an illegal trust with a lawyer, and people can say what they want.
Right.
If it's not, we watch enough Judge Judy. If it isn't written down someplace, I'm sorry, you can say what you want. You go by the law, and that's what's written down and signed and agreed upon. End of story.
And it's true.
Should be it.
It becomes truth, right? So that is the extent, or the whole, that's the most powerful thing you could do for your heirs. That's like the highest level of passing on your possessions or your whatever. Because people that generate wealth, I mean, think about it. Really, what are the common ways to make wealth? One is own a business. Two is real estate, and three is the stock market, right? Or some sort of assets or portfolio or something like that, right? Those are really the only three ways that I know to make real wealth, right? I mean, it has to be one of those three: a business, real estate, or stock market type stuff.
Yeah, those are things that make money. You can have a great job that makes money, but what do you do with the money?
Yeah.
As soon as you stop working, there's no money. So even people with great jobs that make money take the money and do something with it. And for me, a business can fail, or another business can come along and trump it, as far as being a better business model, and that's gone. Videos were a big thing once upon a time. CDs were, all these things go away after a while.
Right.
In stock market, up and down,
Yeah. So back to your point, and then we're going to carry on because we diverted for about 8 minutes here with my little thing here. I promise you, I've not watched enough of it, but I promise you wholeheartedly that England will be fine, because she indoctrinated her son. He was by her bedside, and I could picture her with her finger saying, "Don't, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, make sure you do this, don't forget about this, don't forget about that." And so the only problem that I think he's going to have is settling down his two sons. But other than that, I think he'll run the country just the way the rest of them.
He's so old, why should he start any trouble? He's just going to let it ride for a few years and then
Exactly.
give it to William. See you later. But yeah, I hope they get along and just stop being Stop listening to Markle there. Sorry. Blah, 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 blah.
All right, so that's probate. But, so we're talking about in probate, you got to make sure that things are written down and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about if that's not in a minute. But before I divert from that's probate, it's different in real estate. Because in real estate, probate's a whole different meaning.
Oh.
Right? See, often the person whom is gone can no longer sign a deed. So if I have a piece of property in my name, right? Now, if it's in a business name, that's a different story. But in my name, then my name is on the deed, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not alive. So who's going to sign the deed? Right? And we're going to cover this in a minute because a power of attorney can't do it. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute.
Yes,
so we need a judge and or a court to assign the correct person to sign the deed to the favorable buyer for the overall estate. Mm-hmm. Those deeds, I should have looked it up. Those deeds actually have a specific name. They're generated by a probate court. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but they are a specific type of deed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe one of the listeners know.
I don't know. So here's what happens, right? So a court has to be assigned they have to assign the correct person to sign the deed to do a favorable to the favorable buyer for the overall estate without any skullduggery or dishonesty. Mm-hmm. So they're like a third party. Right?
Sure.
So they have to do it for what is best involved for everyone. Okay? Now, the purpose of probate court is to settle or to balance the financial affairs of the deceased person. So that means that there's assets and liabilities. Assets are things that make money, and liabilities are things that take money. Mm-hmm. Right? So you don't want if the deceased person has assets, you don't want the heirs to get the assets and stiff the people with the liabilities. In other words, they owe taxes, right? And because they're dead, they get away with it. But there's money in the estate, and the heirs take the money and don't pay the taxes, right? And lovely. There's many examples like that. So the purpose of the court, with real estate and with assets, I'm talking about live assets, businesses and stuff like that, is that they need to balance the spreadsheet, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going to take all the assets and they're going to pay all the debts, and when they pay all the debts, whatever's left is what goes to the heirs.
Sure, makes sense.
All right, so now if there's a will, the court will assign an administrator. Okay? Or often the person that wrote the will name the administrator because they know who they want.
Right.
So now watch this. The administrator is going to do the legwork for the court based on what the will says. Mm-hmm. So the court is going to oversee to make sure the administrator is doing their job, staying ethical. If there is no will, the court will assign it's called an executor.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So an executor is really what it's called. An executor. In this case, the executor is going to do all of the legwork for the court. See, the executor is not directly working for the deceased person because the deceased person didn't write down what their intentions really were, therefore they're unknown. So the court is going to use standard operating procedures to make sure they balance out the balance sheet, to make sure that the liabilities and the assets are paid in name of the person. They don't want to ruin their reputation, good or bad, right? So they don't want to. So they're going to do the right thing, the correct thing, right? They have a fiduciary responsibility, meaning that they're legally responsible with the money to make sure it's done correctly. Okay?
Makes sense.
So the number one confusion with probate is someone has a power of attorney and thinks they are, they can distribute assets without going to probate. And I run into a lot of this when we're making deals, right? Except the power of attorney expires once the main party dies. So if I have a power of attorney with you and you're giving me rights to do whatever, if you pass away, the power of attorney goes along with it.
Yep.
By the way, power of attorney means the authority to act for another person in a specific or all legal or financial matters. Now, we use a power of attorney with our subject to deals, but the power of attorney is only for the property, nothing else. So that's what you call a specific power of attorney. Right? So it's just for the property.
Yep.
Okay, so
it's limited.
So you could do specific things with power of attorney. The point is that once you pass away, once the person that you're holding the power of attorney with passes away, you no longer have rights. If that wasn't true, then why do we have probate courts?
Right, but instead, if there's a will and the person can name somebody to be the administrator, then it's like a power of attorney continuing into the future, but it's an administrator that's on top of it.
Right. So I've run into this with families, like why would they want to hire, go to probate? Well, I'm going to cover all that in a minute. So I get what you're saying. So, but remember what I said in the beginning of the podcast, probate is used for legitimacy of the documents.
Oh, that's important. Boy, say that again.
Yeah, so remember in the beginning I said probate is used for the legitimacy of the documents.
Yeah, that even rings truer after your little story, Bill.
So even though you have power of attorney and the rights to sign, are the documents legitimate? Because the person that has power of attorney could have went rogue. They could have made their own documents.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is this making sense?
No, absolutely. Well, I've been through it with my parents, and if your listeners are in any older age, not like teenagers, they might have gone through some experiences like this. It's pretty crazy stuff.
So I've had that happen where I've had people such as yourself, not you because you were really good at it, but I've had family members. I was raised by a next door neighbor. He literally lived 2 blocks down the street. He was 100% American Indian. I didn't know that when I met him. He was a fascinating guy. I fell in love with him at 9 years old. I had a dad. I had a mom. I lived there. But this guy taught me about everything. He taught me how to fix cars. He taught me how to do plumbing, electrical. He taught me how to work. He taught me about sex and money. And if it wasn't for him, I would not be where I am today, for sure.
Amazing.
And he was my idol. And what happened in the end was he had Alzheimer's. And I don't know why I'm telling you the story. I lost my train of thought. But he had Alzheimer's.
Because of the probate and people going through all that.
Yeah. So
right.
So the granddaughter, who is the one that's kind of in charge, is like asking me what to do. And my advice to her was just go open a probate. And here's the reason why. Because probate will automatically handle any and all family or heirs, depending on what, whoever thinks they deserve the money or the possessions. It handles all the fighting or disputes. And it usually costs about $150 to open a case.
So, do you always have to go to probate, or can you have your will and everything in such order that you just work with an attorney and settle everything?
So, my opinion, I don't have a legal answer for that, but my opinion is open a probate. And the reason why is because it gets documented, and it gets judged. Because here's the most important thing that a probate court is going to do. This is the most important thing. Is they're going to make sure there's no contestation. So if for some reason, like I'm doing probate and there's a probate deal and there's an heir, right? Well, let's talk about a situation you and I had. We had a property. I don't know if you remember this or not. I think it was you. We had a property in New London. Were you with me with that? I'm not sure if you were with me.
Well, there was one in New London. Keep going. I'll see if I recognize.
So the realtor shut the furnace off and the pipes froze, and 40,000 gallons of water went through the house.
Right down the hill onto the street.
Yeah, right. So literally 40,000 gallons. So they had to remediate the basement because it had mold and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, long story short, they thought they had a legitimate lawsuit against the realtor for turning the furnace off.
That's right. They're trying to find who was the last person in the house that didn't.
And I spoke to our attorney, and he was like, "That's really hard to prove." So I kind of disabused them of that. But the point is the property was I'm sorry, there's text going off in the background and it keeps distracting me. I should shut that off. So the property was like a $200,000, we'll say a $200,000 property, and we had it bought for $100,000. Well, it was the mother and father's house, and it went to probate, and what happened was there were 3 siblings in the will. One of the siblings, meaning their parents' children, siblings are brothers and sisters, right? Yeah. So one of the siblings passed away, and now there were 3 children that became part of
his
the
kids
probate.
came into the picture. That's right.
And what happened was one of the children felt like they wanted to keep the family home, and so they inherited the property. They had to pay the other 2 siblings off, probably for a lot less than $100,000, and they got the property. When technically, all it was a little scamish in my mind, because whoever the child was, they were looking to flip a house and make money, and they found an angle, right? So that's probate, right? So that's why I'm saying that, if you don't have a court to handle that, how does all that get ironed out? So the problem with doing it without a court is the unforeseen aspects of it. Now, if you're a soul like you're a perfect example. You're a soul. You're the only child, and there was nobody to contest your mother's wishes. There was a will. She said that she wanted whatever. You're the only person. Nobody else can contest it because there are no other heirs.
Yep.
And so you did what you did, right? So there are specific incidences, but that's what a good attorney would do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so enough of the theory. We're a half hour in. Let's get down to creative real estate meets probate. Now that you have a background of what probate is and how it works, and a little bit, hopefully we cleared up some misconceptions and some myths in your mind. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. If you want, you can type us a question, or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and go to the support on the top right hand side, and I'll answer the questions later. So here's the first of a few secrets I have today about probate. So the first is capital. In other words, money for these deals. And where to find it. So a big myth, and you know this because you were with me when this happened. You watched the epiphany happen in front of your eyes. A big myth I had planted in my head for like 20 years is this. When you use cash, or like private money or hard money or whatever you want to use, whenever you use cash to buy deals, you sell for cash. And that's usually within 12 months. Okay. When you buy on terms, meaning you get monthly payments, you sell on terms. And that was the myth I had. I didn't even know I had it, if you remember right. I didn't realize I had it.
Well, it was it's one of those things that you don't question.
Right.
I mean, when you borrow money to buy a house, it can be a little expensive, and you don't want to keep dragging the expense into the future. You want to turn it over, get your money, and go. And when you buy on terms, why would you sell it right away? That was the whole point.
Right.
You want to make money down the road. I mean, you can if the right dollar amounts come along. You don't have to, but now we're looking at maybe that can be juggled a little bit.
Right, which is where the money now, money monthly, money later came from, which we'll talk in a few minutes. But the myth buster for me, or the earth-shattering, the sea parted in front of my eyes, was you can use cash to buy and hold if you do this. Right? If you do what we're about to talk about, which I never thought of. So the way to do that is to seek out retirement funds like IRAs, 401ks, Roth IRAs, that kind of stuff. Right?
Long-term money that's sitting in an account that you cannot touch anyways.
Right. And to be fully transparent, this came when we went to the Jay Connor Private Money Boot Camp. That's when this happened. And we were in the event, and then we went out for dinner, and it was like, seriously, you saw it right. I mean, it was a big moment for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so why do we want to use retirement funds? The money's long term, and it's just sitting money looking for steady, dependable, safe place to increase after year after year. Right? Now, we did a whole podcast on this in episode 315, so you can go listen to that episode for more ideas on how to do this. We actually had a guest speaker on. Her name was Alice Jo Fika.
I don't remember her last name, but I remember Alice, because we called her Alice. Yeah, she's from the company.
Yeah, she spells her name Ficca.
Fika.
Yeah, so the podcast was 315, and it was called Comprehensive Look at Self-Directed IRAs to Purchase Profitable Real Estate Deals. So if you want to know more about that, head on over to podcast number 13 when you're done here today, and she gives contact information. I'm going to give it to you in a minute, so if you want to grab something to write on, I'm going to give you her phone number so you can call if you want to know more about this. But I'm going to do that in a minute, so go ahead and grab something to write on. But for now, just know you can use Quest Trust to do all your work, much like a private lender assistant. So the idea that we proposed in podcast number 315, once you know someone has retirement money, you send them to Quest Trust and let them get educated from Quest Trust on the process. Right? You don't do it. You're not as good as these guys are. So like if I said to Peter, you have, how do you, you're talking about a deal. Like for example, I just bought a house in Akron, Ohio. Actually, we bought 7 of them so far, and we're looking for like $160,000 for 3 houses. So suppose I was talking to you about that, and you'd be like, well, da 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 da, and I'm like, well, do you have an IRA? Somehow I get in the conversation, or I know you have one or something like that. And you're like, yeah, I do. Well, if you're interested and would like to make more money with your IRA and would like to be part of my real estate deals, then what you should do is you should call Quest Trust and get a representative. Now, what we suggest you do in podcast number 315 is you actually call Quest Trust for no cost to you, introduce yourself, get a portfolio going, get a representative, so now you can say, Peter, call John over at Quest Trust, and he helps me with all this kind of stuff. He's on my team, and he'll explain everything to you, so you don't have to disclose any of your information to me. And you just send them over there, and then Quest will not only educate them, but they'll move the money from whatever IRA they're in and make it a self-directed IRA so you can use it. They'll do all the work. Okay. So Alice's number, it's Alice Joe, FICCA. Her phone number is 281-492-3434. I'll repeat that. It's 281-492-3434. But again, you can meet her, you can see her, you can do all that on podcast number 315. It's a phenomenal way to get your private lending market off the ground. Okay? Now, here's the thing. As I said in this podcast description, almost all probate is bought at a discount. And the reason why is because most of these houses are functional. They work, right? But often they're outdated. Like older kitchens and bathrooms and rugs and etc.
Sure.
Right?
Well, it's usually older folks, and if you ever talk to older folks, like they think they just renovated it. It's like 30 years later. Oh, we just did it. It's to them it's still new, and it's fine for them. But you walk in as a new eye and you look at it, it's not quite. But that's fine. They lived in it, but you can get it at a discount because it needs some work.
Right. So here's the secret. Which, by the way, the siblings are not going to want to put 20, 30, 40, 50 grand into these houses to get more money, because suppose the house is worth $200,000 the way it sits, but it's worth $400,000 if they spend 50 grand on it. Just arbitrary numbers, right? The kids are just going to want their 200 grand. They're not going to want to go there. They're not going to want to clean it out. They're not going to want to renovate it, run contractors, they're not in the house flipping business. Now, some of them are. They think they are, and they try. I've bought a few of those, okay? But most of them just want to carry on with their life. They don't want to give up their weekends for summer. They don't, the biggest thing you hear about probate is cleaning it out.
No,
this is where the statement that we use in our presentation when we're talking to a seller came from. Well, just take what you want, and we'll get rid of the rest. Right? This is where it came from.
No kidding.
Is probate deals.
I've been through a few of those with you, but that makes sense. That would be most obvious in that situation. Especially some of the siblings don't even live in the same state.
Right.
They're gone.
So it usually goes, take your valuables or what your rememberings of your deceased person, right, and just leave the rest of it, and we'll get rid of it. The only thing is that once we close, there's no coming back. It's gone. It's either going in a dumpster or it's going to a secondhand store, or we give things away. The thing is we're not in the contents business. We're in the, I used to do that. I used to do tag sales and try to make $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 doing all that stuff, and I realized it wasn't worth it because it held up my renovation, and I was spending more than that in holding costs. So, I'm very generous with that stuff. When stuff like that comes, I just start giving it away. My guys, or unless there's something of value. If they find a coin that's worth $2,000, then I obviously want it. But like one time we had a house I bought and it had golf clubs. In a shed. There must have been 300 of them.
Whoa.
And I think that guy made like $1,500 off the golf clubs. But I just said to him, just I'll tell you what, just clean out the shed, and whatever you get for the golf clubs is my pay to you. And I didn't care because, the shed was cleaned in 2 days because he wanted to go get the money for the golf clubs, right?
Go on.
All right. So anyways, so secret number 2 is this, right? So now you're buying an outdated house, and you're getting a discount because it's outdated, and nobody wants to do the work, and you're willing to do the work, right? So we didn't invent this term, but you were the one that came up with using this term, Peter. So just clean the properties out and do what we call prehabs.
You came up with that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a prehab, right? Meaning that you're gonna get it ready. You're not gonna do a rehab. You're just gonna clean it up. Yeah. So just spend a few $1,000s, sometimes a few $100s. Like this afternoon, we're going to look at a house that you have under an option, and we're going to do a prehab. right?
That's a good word for it.
We're not going to go do a renovation, but we're going to go in and clean it up. And basically, a prehab, try not to spend more than a few $1,000s. And that usually means, believe it or not, a prehab, the biggest bang for your buck on a prehab is to clean up the yard. Usually get the bushes off the house, cut trees, cut the grass, manicure the yard. Don't put new flower beds in and all that kind of stuff. Like I had a house one time was just covered with bushes because it was overgrown. I mean, the lady was 80 years old, and they cut the grass for her, but nobody did anything else, right? So all I did was just cut it all down and get it off the house, right? There was a built-in swimming pool out back. We just cleaned around the pool. We didn't do anything with the pool. We took the tarp off. There was like leaves and stuff in the pool. We took the leaves out and put the cover back on. Right, that's a prehab. Right. Sometimes you'll paint a wall. Sometimes you'll steam clean a rug. But not often. What you want to do is you want to make it quote unquote livable again. Okay. Yep. Then once you get it that way, so it's showable, it looks a lot different than what it was before. So somebody can actually see the value of this property. Then what you do is you market the house like this. House for sale without bank qualifying, handyman special. Now realize when you borrowed your retirement money, you didn't borrow it for 12 months. I skipped over that part. You're going to borrow it for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever you can get. Now, why would somebody want to do that? Well, it's in an IRA. If they're 40 years old, their money's going to sit there for 20 years anyways.
Right, and they're looking for a good return on their money.
Right.
Stocks go up, stocks go down, but when we borrow at a specific rate. And that's guaranteed, it's safe and secure. So why fool around?
So it's easy to get 5 year, 7 year, 10-year money, right? So now you have, say 7 years to use this money, right? So now you're going to put somebody in there with a 2-year lease with an option to buy, right? So you're going to sell on a rent to own. Now you're not selling the house at this point. You stop selling the house. And listen to me, please, because this is the most important part of the podcast. You're not selling the house. See, what's the difference between us and a realtor? And I will tell you right now. Realtors sell houses. We buy and sell the paperwork and the money that's attached to the house. Realtors need the house to get their money. We need the house to get to the paperwork, which is where the money is. Right? So we're buying and selling the transaction. And because we're selling a rent to own or a lease with an option to buy, right? That's a needle in a haystack. That's not everywhere. So your unique selling proposition in this particular case is you're taking a cash house that somebody would normally buy, fix up, and resell. Everybody does that. There's a lot of those. You can find those in any city on the MLS, anywhere you want. There's probably a dozen of those in the next 10 minutes if you want on the MLS you can find.
Sure.
Everybody does that. But who takes this house and turns it into a creative real estate deal where you can sell it on a rent to own, get 3 to 5% down and monthly payments, and allow them to fix it up. Allow them to do the work. Now, here's the magic. When you're buying this house, you're buying it as if you're paying cash. So if they go in and they ruin the house, you planned on spending $50,000 on a renovation anyways in your numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, for example, my house in Clinton that we talk about all the time, right? So so what happens is I bought a $260,000 house. Now it's more like $350 or $375. But I paid. It was worth $260. I paid $110,000 for it. The reason why is because I figured something like $58,000 in renovation money.
Sure.
Now, a person's been living there 3 years. If they moved out tomorrow and I had to go spend $50,000 to do a renovation, am I crying? No, I got the money in the deal. I'll have to go borrow the money. But it's not like, well, I mean, now it's even better because the price went up. But the point is that it was part of the deal. So you're paying cash for the deal because it needs renovation. So you do your Mayo formula, your maximum allowable offer, which is ARV after renovated value times 70% minus your repairs. And often we use $25 a square foot, $30 a square foot for repairs as a rule of thumb, so we know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're using that formula to purchase it, but then once you purchase it, you're doing this prehab, and so instead of selling for $260 my house, I sold for $240. So I gave the buyer $20,000 worth of equity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I paid $110. I borrowed $125. So I borrowed $125, and he paid $240. Right? So he gave me $10,000 down. He owes me $230. So I have $100,000 in equity in that house. See how the numbers went? Right?
Well, you did when you started. You got more now.
Yeah, that's well. If he doesn't, and this is where the comment comes from in past podcasts when I say I make more money on defaults than I do on the deals, right? So I hope he defaults because I'll make another $100,000 on a default. Then I have a $200,000 equity profit. Right now I only have $100 because I have a promise to him, which technically he's been 3 years. I could say to him, your option is executed, move out. I got to get another buyer. I could do that.
Mm-hmm. Could you also get him to purchase it at a higher rate?
Well, I did that already because I put in my option agreement after the first year it goes up 6%. So I already did that. So, but that's here and there. I mean, I don't. That's why I've lasted so long because I don't mess with people like that. Mm-hmm. He got, it could have went the other way, right? So I just, in fact, we were in an airport one time and he never executed. He called me and said he got a loan and he wants to do it. Well, it's been another 3 or 4 months and I haven't heard from him. Mm-hmm. So I think if it goes one more year, and if the market stays the way it is, I don't know. Well, the problem is I make $1,000 a month cash flow off of it. So I hope he never leaves. Mm-hmm. So anyways, the point is that if I really wanted the money, I could just refinance the house and I can get my money out. So I don't need to sell the house to get the money. I can just refinance it.
Well, that's a nice thing about the way you do deals. You have multiple exit strategies. You can keep it and refinance. There's a lot of things you can do with it. The trick is get a house. Get one.
Right.
There's value there. You can do something with it, one way or the other, sooner or later.
That's right. So in this deal, or in any deal, we're the matchmaker. Right? We found lazy money, retirement money, and matched it up with a safe investment. The safest investment on planet Earth, which is real estate. And you said it before, it's consistent because we always pay in the same amount. It doesn't go up and down. It's not a roller coaster ride, right?
Yeah, safe and secure.
And you put yourself, when I talk about putting yourself in the path of success, or in the path of that's in the path of success. This is how you do it, right? You put yourself in the middle for a handsome profit while helping a seller who was having trouble selling. Now, my seller at this particular point, this was his sister's house. He inherited it. He was from another state. He didn't want to deal with cleaning it up because he knew it was a mess. I mean, we went in there and her eyeglasses were on her reading book next to her chair. I mean, kind of like the vision you should get is her cigarette was still in the ashtray and it was still burning. That should be I mean, now I'm not, that didn't really happen, but that should be the vision you get because he went to the house once, walked around, saw how much crap was in there and left, and they sold it to me the next week. Okay?
Bill, the picture I see is the couch downstairs with the blanket kind of rolled up a little bit where she was sleeping. It probably died right there. Yep. It was just still there, like her impression was still there. It was kind of creepy in a way, but
5 dumpsters.
5 dumpsters. And she was an author, and there were a lot of books. So it was kind of bittersweet. Yep. Like you see, she had a wonderful life, and she had this nice house, and it got old and all that, but she did well, so it's okay.
So you put yourself in the middle for the handsome profit of helping the seller who had trouble selling because of the rehab, usually in probate. They don't want to do the rehab. And the buyer who normally couldn't buy. So you're helping everyone and making money.
Hey, Bill, you know what they don't want to do? worse than the rehab? Argue amongst each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Should do this, shouldn't do that. Ooh,
and
good
it's
color,
not the
wrong
it's
color.
not the
Ooh.
siblings. It's never really the siblings. It's usually a spouse or another significant another half that's influencing them.
the person that had no vested interest in it, by default, they're there, and the ones that opening their mouths when they shouldn't be. Yeah.
Right. Okay,
They
so
say
now
Meghan Markle?
let's move on to secret three because we only got 6 minutes left, and I have more than 6 minutes to talk about. So let's go on to secret number 3: how to find these deals the way most don't do it, and is a wide open market if you do what I'm going to tell you. After years of seeking these amazing payday deals, because they are amazing, free and clear deals, and then probate deals, and then subject to are the best deals.
Oh.
Free and clear are hard to get, but when you get them, they're monster deals. Probate are hard to get, but when you get them, they're monster deals, which is why I always say subject to, because they're a lot easier to get. There's more.
Okay.
The ratio is more. It's probably 3-to-1 or 5-to-1 on the other ones. And that's just an arbitrary number. So after years of seeking these deals, these amazing payday deals, doing direct mail, going to the courthouses, buying lists, even door knocking, at one point, I found the only way to find probate deals correctly is to network with probate attorneys. Think of this: the one point before you discard my podcast. I'm sorry. I'm going to just say that again. Think about the one point before you discard my proposal about networking with probate attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you given an offer and had the seller tell you they need to run it by their attorney?
Boy, you're right on that.
Or a CPA. CPA is an accountant, certified public accountant, right? All that means is they didn't understand you and wanted someone to do their heavy lifting or their heavy thinking and just tell the seller the summary of the deal and if they would feel it was safe and do it themselves or not. Mm-hmm. They're being lazy. They don't want to, especially in probate, they don't want to go learn about probate. They just want their money.
Sure.
Right? So what we're doing here is we're reversing the process.
Instead of it becoming a problem like, oh, we got to go check with the attorney, blah, blah, blah. And he's going to say, well, why? I wouldn't do it. Of course you wouldn't do it. You don't need money. You're a rich attorney.
Right. So what we do is we have the opinion leader, because that's what they are. The attorney is the opinion leader, right? Mm-hmm. Telling the seller he or she should do this because this is a good deal. Mm. Or even more important, he has a guy that could do this for you. So because you're networking with the attorney is going to propose you to them.
Right, and that saves everybody a lot of trouble. Imagine having to get a realtor, put it on the market. No, I got a guy that'll buy it. Really? Done.
Now look at the positioning you'll have. Right? And furthermore, once you do a deal or two, and the attorney knows you can close on the purchase and you can get shit done, here's what happens. This is what you don't think about. Attorneys have to close their clients on their deals. Just like we have to close on deals, they have to close on deals. Mm-hmm. So somebody comes to them and says, da-da-da-da-da, and the attorney has to A, give him a price, and B, close him on his services. Right? He has to close the people that are coming to him. Like, I'll give you a classic example.
No, Bill, you don't mean like close, like when you close the purchase. You mean convince them when you say close?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I was thinking you meant like, close the deal. Of course you got to close. So when they sell it, they get to close and make some money there. But you talk about convincing them, which is the most important part.
So I'll give you a classic example, right? So my ex-father-in-law just passed away, and his son is doing it. So I got involved because I knew a lot of things that the sons didn't know, because the father told me a lot of stuff, because we mashed money around so much all the time, right?
Yeah.
So he went to my father-in-law was using my attorney, and my attorney told me in confidence I'm not doing anything because he didn't like the youngest son who was doing all this weird skullduggery, dishonesty stuff. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I don't want you to be offended. And I'm like, no, I understand. I know the kid. I wouldn't want to do it either, right? So I recommended an attorney that we used to use who I knew could do it. So he went to him, and he did all of his stuff. Right? And he told me he did it, but he didn't tell me what he did or anything, because I'm like, okay, I don't need to know that, right? So I need to sneeze. Hang on one second. Excuse me. So what happened was they needed some help with the mother or something like that. They needed to write a power of attorney and some health stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And this attorney didn't call my brother-in-law back right away, and he felt like he got snubbed. So now what's happened is because of that, because my brother-in-law ex-brother-in-law would have gone to this attorney that had already had all the files and do the probate, because he does that. But because of this little thing that happened that the attorney doesn't even know he did, right? Mm. My brother-in-law has now went and hired another probate attorney.
Who doesn't have all the files.
Who doesn't have all the files, doesn't have all the story, right? So you see what I mean? So they have to convince people to get these deals, right? So here's my point, right? If you're in the attorney's back pocket, one of the things he will use to convince the family to go with him is, well, I have this guy and I could probably close on your house in 2 weeks. I have this guy that's really good with real estate. Let me send him out and see what he thinks it's worth before we open the case. Mm. So the attorney now uses you as one of his tools in his tool belt to do his deals. And how do I know this? I don't even know why. I told you the guy that raised me, I called my godfather. And I just made that name up because I didn't know what else to call him. So when he passed away, this actually happened to me because I was appointed by the court his person to take care of him, right? His health. And even though I wasn't part of his money, the lawyer came to me about all the money all the time because he knew that I wasn't in the will at all. I wasn't even in the will. The only thing I got was a toolbox in the garage that I asked for ever since I was like 13 years old. Right, and a refrigerator, a GE refrigerator that was from the 1920s, because we used to keep our worms to go fishing in it, and I always wanted it. Both of them are in my garage, by the way. Okay, so here's the point. Man. So here's the point. By accident, I said to him, "Do you have some other houses?" I mean, like I was like dumb. I was like, "Oh, probate, huh?" I didn't even. This was years ago. I didn't even think of it. I wasn't even thinking of probate as a profit center. And I bought, like in 1 year, I bought 3 or 4 houses from him. So, or 2, maybe a year and a half. But here's the thing. That relationship faded off and I lost that relationship. I don't know why. I wish I had known what I knew today back then, because I would have kept it alive and done more with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So I know all these things I'm telling you, I know about because I've been through them. Right. So, networking with attorneys will be a leverage point for the probate attorney to get the probate file to work on. Right? But there's a few ways to do this networking. I've had success with in the past, and because we're out of time, I've put a link in the description so you can do it that way. So basically, the way it happens is you could do it one of a couple ways. One way is that you can get 10 of your friends, ask them if they have an attorney. If they say yes, you ask them to make an appointment with the attorney with you and your friend or your family, and then tell them that you're looking for probate deals. If they don't do probate, ask them who they do probate with, right? And you can get them that way.
Okay.
Obviously, what we're going to do, you can do marketing. You can go on to Fiverr, Fiverr, and look up lists for attorneys. And you can get somebody that has a list. They'll give you a list for like $10. They'll give you a list in your county of all the probate attorneys. And you can, which I have that list. So when we do ours, I'm already ready. They have all their list and contact information. You can send them mail. Or the third way is you can actually speak to your attorney. If you have an attorney, have a good rapport with them, and have your attorney write a referral letter from you to other attorneys. And then you have the referral letter get mailed to that list you were talking about, because attorneys talk to other attorneys.
Right. So it looks like our attorney is sending the letter to them. We do all the work in the mailing, but he signed it like he's referring us to them.
Right. So the point is that it will get past the gatekeeper and get to the attorney, because attorney to attorney will usually get to the attorneys, right? So just imagine getting phone calls to go look at a property from a probate attorney, and then that same attorney is in front of a probate judge pushing your deal, right? Think that is turning the cards in your favor when looking for a deal or doing deals?
That's a good one.
Right. So don't forget to look in the chat for the link. Thank you for spending time with us today. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you're watching us or listening to us. Make sure you leave us a review, good, bad, or indifferent, good, bad, or ugly, as they say the Clint Eastwood style, good, bad, or ugly. Also, if you have any questions, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com /support, or just push the support button. And the last thing is if you have WhatsApp Messenger, type in Let's Talk Real Estate, and I have a free platform there where you can ask questions. There's a bunch of people in there that are from this podcast or my email list that have somehow or another found us. YouTube, Facebook, meetups. We do meetups on the third Wednesday of every month. They somehow or another found us and they want to talk about real estate. So it's Let's Talk Real Estate is the WhatsApp group. You can go in there and join for free. Okay. With that said, over and out. Thank you for spending time with us. And because I've been doing it the last couple of podcasts, episode number 322 is called How to Create Real Estate Rookies Easily. How do creative real estate rookies easily find motivated sellers and do a deal competently? That's next week's podcast. So we'll talk to you then. Have a good week.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.